The 2023 London Spitfire have marched through the play-in gauntlet and have booked their playoff tickets to Toronto. But one question remains. Can they take their seats at Overwatch's top table and enter the playoffs as a real threat? With a new patch in the balance and a new map pool, London could easily steal the show. In what could be shaping up to be the Overwatch League's final season, is there a fairy tale ending for the inaugural champions? By rights and predictions, the London Spitfire should not be here, especially if dated narratives are your thing. For far too long, there was a prevailing idea that good players made good teams, with more money spent on stars meaning that the wins were probably going to come along eventually. After 2 years now of repeated and familiar success, London would like to have a word with the author of that tallest tale in esports. Towards the end of 2022, GGRecon put out some info regarding North American Overwatch League franchise budgets. Ranking them based on an alphabetical tier system, the London Spitfire was given a D, and with an arm's reach of the lowest budget that year domestically. And with little changing about their roster moving into 2023, it's a safe assumption that it wasn't their menagerie of resources keeping their heads above water. Clearly, there's more than money at work here. Their players alone have been solid individually, yes, but together, they're the definition of a sum far larger than their parts. And past that, 2022's Coach of the Year Christopher keeps picking the same squad, reinforcing a playstyle that keeps winning plaudits. The same starting five, the same coaches, consistency. This Spitfire system is a piece of modern day alchemy. It's their movement and positioning that left the league stupefied. London's macro is both one trick, but branching and deep all at the same time. Everything offensively centers around Symmetra's teleporter. The most common play for the Spitfire has been to send all 5 of their players through using Baptiste's amplification matrix and pairing that with a Bastion. Machine guns go brr, profit. This punishes any sort of hesitation or untimely rotations, as they ruthlessly showed against San Francisco Shock, but it's not a one-dimensional, one-trick, one-hit wonder. At times, it can be tricky to see what their teleporter even means. Take this play from their series versus Boston Uprising. If you keep an eye on Haddy as he walks through the teleporter, he stands there for a moment, teleports back and finds purchase on the Uprising back line. And London constantly look for ways they can be more versatile with the teleporter, like jabbing out with an individual flank. If you keep your eye on Backbone during the X-ray here, you can see him solo teleport towards the high ground, giving him a crossfire of the choke the Shock are trying to push through. Watching on, you'll see him spam down the choke completely uncontested, leaving San Francisco dazed, confused, and eventually on the wrong end of London's players. And while completely baiting the teleporter and sending no one through was a rare tactic, it paid off in their most important game of the season, their playoff clinching head-to-head with the Toronto Defiant. Here you'll see Backbone set up London's standard teleporter towards the more enclosed area to the left side of the first objective. Toronto assume that they're going to continue that game script, and Hydron takes an extra second to punish what looks like a slow rotation. But he fell victim to one of Spitfire's classic pranks. You see, it turns out the plan was to never send anyone through anyway and catch the Defiant looking. The Spitfire live by their teleporters and they die by them, because without them, their offense is hamstrung. The upside to that is that no one is ever quite sure if Haddy is coming in for a lightning-fast Earth Shatter or if the entire team is going to speed boost towards their support. And it's that type of chaos theory that will only continue to provide fruit as London flies into Toronto. There's this phenomena in sports, especially in football, or soccer for our American viewers, where a losing team becomes fair weather fans of the team that eliminated them, usually accompanied by slightly sad eyes and the phrase, "Our team was knocked out by the champions." It takes the sting out of those big losses. Now, whether the Toronto crowd adheres to this particular affliction remains to be seen, but the Spitfire have an equal chance of walking into a lion's den of boos and jeers, or a welcome party that feels like London when they walk out at the Mattamy Athletic Centre. What is clear though, is that the Overwatch League playoff patch is going to be game-changing in a big way. With the new meta that sits on the horizon, the new map pool awaiting the playoffs, and the new scrim bubbles that have emerged, the 2023 playoffs are as unpredictable as any before them, and ultimately, anyone could stand atop the podium. And yes, by anyone, we also mean the Reinhardt one-trick team that has blazed the trail through the play-ins. London Spitfire have a real shot at not just sending some people home at Toronto, but maybe even making it out of the fairly confusing GSL-style group stage. Whether or not you understand the draft or the format is sort of irrelevant, but if you really want to know more about it, you should check out this video, where me and Yiska will talk you through the format and let you know why it might be a good thing or a bad thing. What's important is this: London found their way into the easier group, one that holds 2 keys, the Boston Uprising and the Hangzhou Spark. The former quickly dispatched the Spitfire to advance through the play-ins, but crucially, that was on an old metagame, and the latter has no experience playing against London's explosive and tricky teleporters, and has to travel to Canada, which can't be ignored, and so we see London's Grand Finals route open up before us. And if you look at the upcoming meta, which supposedly favours Zarya and Genji as the big winners, That's perfect for London. If you think back to the 2022 kickoff clash, there was a tank trifecta between Zarya, Doomfist and Reinhardt. They tended to counter each other in sequential order, so Zarya having a solid matchup with the Doomfist comp and so on and so forth. And while we are admittedly skimming over the details, Reinhardt historically has not been a bad matchup when looking down the barrel of a Zarya metagame. His tendency to align with very direct, engage-heavy compositions makes it difficult for the Zarya team to even get the ball rolling. And even on top of all that, what pressure does London actually face? They weren't supposed to make it this far anyway. They are the biggest of underdogs in this fight. A team with a chip on their shoulder and nothing to lose. Who cares if they're bringing a hammer to a laser fight? Everyone knows what they're going to do and no one can prepare for it because no one does it quite like the Spitfire. So, if you're a hyper-stylistic team with no pressure, in a chaotic game state placed in the far easier of two groups, your chances of advancing aren't just alive, they're subtly good. Trade the superstars for style, and this run echoes quite heavily their 2018 championship run. So if you're still a non-believer, it's time to face the facts. The London Spitfire are a threat that no one can see coming. They're a threat that doesn't abide by the rules, isn't afraid to be a gimmick, and will force you to adapt. And sometimes, just occasionally, world titles ride in on the darkest of dark horses.